Welcome to today's show. I'm your host, JagsFan97. Today we are going to wrap up the top 100 free agents of 2019. In our part 1 video, we covered the first 36 players, ending with defensive end Ezekiel Ansah. To recap, while he played for the Lions in 2018, the teams I expect to go after him are the Raiders, Patriots, and Lions. I expect him to sign with the Patriots. Now, let's finish up the last 37, and here we go. Number 63 is defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson. He is 28 years old. He had 49 tackles, 4.5 sacks this year. His best year was in 2014, where he had 66 tackles, 8 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. He has an 86 overall rating in Madden. The teams that I expect to go after him this year are the Chiefs, Vikings, and Jets. I expect the Jets to bring him back. He spent some time away from the team, but when you look at that roster with the Jets and what they're trying to do, of course they're trying to get more talent to the team, but something that may not be as obvious is they would like to have some more veterans, especially along the lines, offensive and defensive lines. I think bringing back Sheldon Richardson to the Jets would be a good addition, and it will help just the team overall having that guy on the team. Number 62 is offensive guard DJ Fluker. He is 28 years old. This year he started 9 out of 10 games. His best year was in 2014 when he was with the Chargers at the time, where he started 16 out of 16 games. And he's done it twice in his career, in 2014 and 2016. So he does have a history of being injured, which may be concerning if you're looking for a reliable starter. The teams I would expect to have him on their radar are the Bills, Jaguars, and Buccaneers. I expect the Buccaneers to sign this guy. DJ Fluker is not the best offensive lineman available in this free agent class, but I think he can get the job done. And maybe a better addition than J.R. Sweezy was a couple years ago for him. Number 61 is Margus Hunt. He is 32 years old. He had 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He's a late bloomer. I love his size at 6'8". Can bat the balls down very easily just because of his size. He had his best year this past season. He can still start, but he's running out of time. His overall in Madden was 78. The teams I would expect for him to go after are the Chiefs, Dolphins, and Colts. I expect the Colts to re-sign him to about a 2-year deal, maybe even 3, and then his career will be done. Number 60 is Frank Gore, halfback. He's 36 years old. He doesn't have a whole lot of time left, like 1 more season, and that's it. He had a great year, considering he was injured for part of it, and he wasn't a feature back. He had 722 rushing yards and 124 receiving yards and a touchdown with a 4.6 yards per carry average. At 36 years old, that's pretty damn good. His best season ever was dating all the way back to 2006 when he had 1,695 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns with 485 receiving yards and 1 touchdown with a 5.4 yards per carry average, which was just unbelievable, especially at that time. His overall Madden is an 80. He played for the Dolphins this past season. The teams I would expect to go after his services are the Browns, Buccaneers, and Dolphins. I expect the Dolphins to re-sign him to a 1-year deal. Basically do the exact same thing you did the previous year and hope for the same amount of success. Number 59 is offensive guard Roger Saffold. He started all games this year. His best year came in 2010, 2014, and 2018, in which he all started 16 games. He's missed games before, and he's an up and down player. Depending on the year, you may get a great year out of him. Other years, you may not get a great year. But for my projections, I think he's going to have another good year next year. His overall in Madden was 84. He played for the Rams, and he's played for another team. But the teams I do expect to go after him are the Bills, Jaguars, and Eagles. I expect the Eagles to sign him on a 1 to 2 year deal. At his age of 31 years old, he's towards the end of his career as well, so it just makes sense on that front. Number 58 is halfback Mark Ingram II. He is 29 years old. This past season, he had 645 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns, 170 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown with a 4.7 yard per carry average. Had he gotten more touches, he definitely would have been a 1,000-yard rusher this year, but he was splitting carries with Alvin Kamara. His best year was in 2016, 2 years ago, in which he had 1,403 rushing yards with 6 touchdowns and 319 receiving yards with 4 touchdowns with a 5-yard per carry average. He has a 86 overall in Madden, and the teams I would expect to go after him are the Browns, Buccaneers, and Chiefs. I think the Buccaneers sign him. Interestingly enough, he's very similar to a Doug Martin as far as his size and abilities. But Mark Ingram's a little bit more consistent than Doug Martin is. Number 57 is wide receiver Robbie Anderson of the Jets. He is 26 years old. This past season he had 50 receptions, 752 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns with a 13.7 yard per reception average. Just a year before that was his best season, in which he had 63 receptions, 941 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns with a 14.9 yard per reception average. Got close to the 1,000, but he's never reached his 1,000 yards, which is a little bit concerning to me. Because he's never reached 1,000 yards, I would not place all my money on this guy, which is why he's in the middle of the pack of his top 100. He'll definitely make a great number 2 guy on the depth chart, though. He had an 83 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Bills, Titans, and Redskins. I expect the Redskins to sign him, and like I said, just go have him be a number 2 guy on the depth chart. Number 56 is safety Anthony Harris. He is 27 years old. He had 46 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 6 passes defensed. He fortunately got playing time due to the starting free safety of the Vikings going out to injury earlier in the season, and he used his opportunity to have a great year. This was his best year. I think that the fact that he had so much playing time allowed him to showcase how good he really is. And while he only has a 76 overall rating in Madden, I expect that number to greatly increase for next year if he gets the chance to start. The teams I would expect to have him go after him are the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Giants. I think the Cowboys sign him. He will most likely, if he goes to the Cowboys, be a starter, if not push for more playing time. Number 55 is defensive end Henry Anderson. He had 35 tackles, 7 sacks, and he's only 28 years old with the Jets. This was his best season. The best season he had before that was just 2 sacks. This guy's not a big sack guy. He is more about stop and run. He has an 81 overall rating in Madden, and the teams that I would expect to have him pursue his interest are the Raiders, Patriots, and Jets. I expect him to resign with the Jets because he did have a career year in which he just had a 1-year contract the year before. So expect a long-term contract to come on in. At number 54, we have quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, otherwise known as Fitzmagic. This past year with the Buccaneers, he had 17 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 2,366 passing yards, 152 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, a 66.7 completion average, and a 100.4 quarterback rating. Clearly one of his better years, especially as a backup coming in, pushing Winston for playing time throughout the year due to inconsistencies. on both quarterbacks. That's the thing about him. He is very inconsistent. There will be times when he will provide a great game for you, and there will be times when he just does not provide that great game for you. This is not a quarterback you can rely on when a game matters. He's about as game manager as possible. When you look at previous teams that's had him, the Texans and Titans probably used him the best, because they knew that he was a game manager and they didn't ask too much out of him. And he was also a stopback quarterback for those guys. Although his best season was with 2015 with the Jets, in which he had 31 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 3,905 passing yards, 270 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. He did have a 59% completion rate average, and then he had the 87.9 quarterback rating. And that's really his ceiling. He probably would have put up similar numbers had he played the full season with the Buccaneers. But I think that's due to just them having a way better offense than Fitzpatrick is used to having. His overall Madden is 78 with the Bucs. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Broncos, Buccaneers, and Jets. I actually think Ryan Fitzpatrick makes a homecoming back to the Jets as a backup to help out Sam Darnold. Let's see here. Number 53, we have halfback Doug Martin, the inconsistent man himself. At 30 years old this past season, he had 723 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 116 receiving yards, and a 4.2 yards per carry average. He didn't start the whole year because Marshawn Lynch was ahead of him on the depth chart, but when he was asked to start, due to Marshawn Lynch getting injured, he did a great job. This is a guy that I think is underrated, even though he has been inconsistent. I think he is a full-time starter in this league, and if given the opportunity, he has the ability to be a top 10 rusher any year that you have him in the league. His best year, though, was in 2012, his rookie year, in which he had 1,454 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, 472 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown with a 4.5 yards per carry average. His rating in Madden this year was 78. The teams I would expect to have him, pursue the interest are the Browns, Chiefs, and Raiders. I expect him to re-sign with the Raiders. I know that John Gruden needs a running back, especially that running back group. It's an unknown whether Marshawn Lynch will return for another season. It's assumed that he will, and that he would just be a great guy to have on that team as a backup, or, like I said, which he surely can do, a starter role. Number 52 is halfback Jay Ajayi of the Philadelphia Eagles. He is 26 years old, so he's still young. He got injured very early in the year, only played a couple games, but he did have 184 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 20 receiving yards, and a 4.1 yards per carry average. He played between 3 to 4 games this year. Based on the 184 rushing yards in those 3 to 4 games, that's about average, for a good running back. His best year was in 2016, when he was with the Dolphins at the time, with 1,272 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, 151 receiving yards, and a 4.8 yards per carry average. He has an 85 overall in Madden. The teams I would project to go after him are the Buccaneers, Chiefs, and Eagles. I do expect him to re-sign with the Eagles, and I expect him to be the starter on a long-term deal. Number 51 is safety Mike Evans. He is so old I can't even tell you, 38 years old. He's had, his past year, 75 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 6 passes defensed. This is one of the most interesting players in the league, due to the very fact that for basically the first 2/3 of his career, he was a below average player, mainly a backup, and then as soon as he signed with the Colts, things turned around for him, constantly getting between 3 to 5 interceptions per year. And the fact that he's still doing it with the Carolina Panthers is very inspiring for him. Based on his play ability, I would say he can play until he's 40 years old. Um, his rating in Madden was a 77. The teams I would project to go after him are the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Steelers. I expect him to go to the Steelers, and he would fill a very similar role that Mike Mitchell filled when he himself was with the Carolina Panthers, transferring to the Steelers, and he'll finish out his career with the Steelers. At number 50, halfway through the point, it's Dez Bryant, wide receiver. He did not play this year due to injuries and contract negotiations with the Ravens, the Browns, and the Saints. He finally settled with the Saints, but he got injured, unfortunately, the first week in his practice with the Saints. His best year was in 2014, where he had 88 receptions, 1,320 receiving yards, and 16 touchdowns with a 15 yards per reception average. I do not think he can replicate those numbers ever again, but I do think he can be a quality backup number 2 receiver. His rating in Madden was an 82 with the Saints, and the teams I would project to go after him are the Patriots, Jaguars, and Saints. I do expect him to re-sign with the Saints on a 1 to 2 year deal, and hopefully he can get his career turned around, both maturely and on the field stats-wise. Number 49 is quarterback Tyrod Taylor. He is 30 years old. He had, through 4 starts with the Browns this year, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 473 passing yards, 125 rushing yards with 1 touchdown, a uninspiring 49.4 completion average with a 64.5 quarterback rating. In my opinion, this is a total down year for him. I do not expect him to have these numbers ever again. His best year was in 2015 with the Bills, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,035 passing yards, 568 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. He had a 63% completion with a 99.4 quarterback rating. This is a guy that doesn't turn the ball over. One of the most careful quarterbacks in the league with the ball. He had a 77 overall with the Browns. The teams I would project to go after him are the Broncos, Dolphins, and Jaguars. I do expect him to sign with the Dolphins and Ryan Tannehill to be released and go somewhere else. Unfortunately, Tannehill did not make the top 100 list of the free agents, but I think Tyrod Taylor with the Dolphins will basically fill the same role that he did with the Bills, and he will wreak havoc while not turning the ball very much. Number 48 on this list is offensive guard Mike Upatai. He started 10 out of 10 games. At 32 years old, he doesn't miss a lot of games, but his best years were in 2010, 2011, and 2012, 3 straight years of starting 16 out of 16 games for the 49ers when they were a relevant team. His rating in Madden with the Cardinals was a 77. The teams I would expect to go after his services are the Bills, Jaguars, and Packers. I expect the Packers to sign him just to fill in a role on the either left guard or right guard spot for about 2 years. Number 47 on the list is offensive tackle Jared Veldheer of the Broncos. He started 12 out of 12 games this year, only missed 4 games due to injuries. His best years were in 2011, 2012, 2014, and 2015. 4 separate times in his career, he has started all the games. In Madden, he is a 76 overall player. The teams I would project to go after him are the Browns, Jaguars, and Texans. I expect him to sign with the Texans and to fill the right-hand side. He's a very similar player to a Eric Winston. He's a lot taller, but his ability athletically is very similar. Number 46 on this list is center Mitch Morse of the Chiefs. He started 11 out of 11 games this year. He's only 27 years old. His best season was in 2016, where he started every game. His overall in Madden is 82. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Bills, Giants, and Jets. I expect the Jets to sign him. Even though the Jets went after Spencer Long the previous year, They're going to bring back another guy. It's kind of like the Browns with quarterbacks. You just keep bringing in new guys until someone sticks. And I do expect Mitch Morse to be the new center for the New York Jets. Number 45 is offensive guard Quinton Spain of the Tennessee Titans. He started 15 out of 15 games this year, only missed one. His best season was this past year, and he has an 80 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would project to go after him are the Bills, Jaguars, and Vikings. I expect him to sign with the Vikings and to be their new left guard, and I expect him to receive a 5-year contract as well. Number 44 on the list is wide receiver Cole Beasley. While he is getting up there in age at 30 years old, he did still have another productive season as a slot receiver with 65 receptions, 672 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns with 10.3 yards per reception average. As a slot receiver, whenever you're making more than 400 yards in that year, you're doing pretty darn good. In 2016, his best year, he had 75 receptions, 830 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns with 11.1 yards per reception average. I do believe that Cole Beasley, in a certain circumstance, and it requires a lot of things to happen, but he can do better than that in the future. He has an 83 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would project to go after this guy are the Bills, Jaguars, and Cowboys. I expect the Cowboys to re-sign him on a 4-year deal, and he's going to finish out his career as a Cowboy, and I'm sure he mutually feels the same way. Number 43 on the list is halfback C.J. Anderson. At 29 years old, this past year he had 403 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, 41 receiving yards, and a 6 yards per carry average. He didn't really start turning on his ability until very late in the season, about week 15, and especially in the playoffs and Super Bowl. This is a guy that I think will transfer his skills and his ability from the Super Bowl into next year. His best season was in 2017, where he had 1,007 rushing yards with 3 touchdowns, 224 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown with 4.1 yards per carry average. He is an 80 overall rated player in Madden. The teams I would project to go after him are the Browns, Rams, and Raiders. I do expect him to re-sign with the Rams on a 2-year deal, and he will fill in the same role that he did in the playoffs as a backup to Todd Gurley. Number 42 on the list is halfback Tevin Coleman of the Atlanta Falcons. He is 26 years old, one of the youngest guys in this top 100 list. He had 800 rushing yards with 4 touchdowns, 276 receiving yards with 5 touchdowns, and a 4.8 yards per carry. Due to the starter getting injured, he had the ability to have more playing time, and he definitely produced with more playing time. It's not surprising to me. If you look at his history, he's been very consistent and good as a backup. There's a lot of players out there in the league which, if they got more playing time, would be putting up some more numbers. His best year was, of course, his past season. He has an 83 overall in Madden. The teams I would project to go after him are the Browns, Buccaneers, and Colts. I expect the Colts to sign him and to become the new starter for the Indianapolis Colts. Number 41 on the list is tight end Jesse James. He is 25 years old. He had 30 receptions, 423 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns with 14.1 yards per reception average. He is one of the best tight ends up and coming with potential. His best year was, of course, his past season. He has a 78 overall rating in Madden. The teams I project to go after him are the Broncos, Cowboys, and Lions, and Jaguars. I do expect the Jacksonville Jaguars to go after him. Whereas, whether or not Austin Seferian-Jenkins, the Jaguars' current tight end, goes to free agency or not, Jesse James will, no matter what, compete for the starting job wherever he goes. Number 40 on the list is Za'Darius Smith of the Baltimore Ravens. He is 26 years old. He had 45 tackles, 8.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble, starting opposite side of Terrell Suggs. This was his best year so far. He has an 83 overall rating in Madden. His projected teams to sign him are the Colts, 49ers, and Raiders. I expect the Colts to sign him and to become their new starter, and maybe even bring him down to defensive end. 39 on this list is defensive end Cameron Wake at 37 years old. He is running out of time, but he is also an ageless player. This past season, he had 36 tackles, 6 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. His best season, of course, was in 2012, where he had 53 tackles, 15 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. He has an 89 overall rating in Madden, definitely one of the best defensive ends as far as pass rushing specialist in the league. For projected teams I would expect to go after him are the Dolphins, Raiders, and Patriots. I do expect him to return to the Dolphins on a 1 to 2 year deal in which he'll finish out his career. Number 38 on the list is safety Trey Boston. He is 27 years old. He had 79 tackles, 3 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 9 passes defensed. Anytime as a safety you have more than 5 passes defense, you're doing pretty darn good. His best season, though, was with the Chargers in 2017, where he had 79 tackles and 5 interceptions. If you remember, he was with the Carolina Panthers the year before, and the Chargers brought him on to be a backup in which he pushed for the starting job when the starter originally got injured, and he just didn't look back since, and he really has just come on in this league. The teams I do expect to go after him are the Chiefs, Chargers, and Buccaneers. I expect the Buccaneers to sign him to a very, very long-term deal. Number 37 on this list is wide receiver Randall Cobb. He is 29 years old this year with 38 receptions, 383 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had definitely one of his down years, but he wasn't playing the entire year. His best season ever was in 2014, in which he had 91 receptions, 1,287 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns with 14.1 yards per reception average. He was playing alongside Jordy Nelson, and anytime as a number 2 guy you're getting those kind of numbers, you deserve to be mentioned as a starter, which is definitely what happened to him. He has an 81 overall rating in Madden. The teams I'll expect to go after him are the Bills, Jaguars, and Titans, and Raiders. I expect for Raiders to sign him, and actually expect him to go back to John Gruden and play alongside Jordy Nelson once more, in which they will have dominant success with Derek Carr. Number 36 on the list is Adam Humphries, wide receiver. He is an up-and-coming player. He was third on the depth chart with the Buccaneers, but still had wonderful numbers with 76 receptions, 816 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. This was his best year so far. He had a 79 overall rating in Madden, which I do not understand. The teams I expect to go after him are the Bills, Jaguars, and Cardinals. I expect the Cardinals to sign him to go alongside Larry Fitzgerald, where they can get a true number 2 receiver, and eventually Adam Humphries will become the number 1, which is not bad when you go 3-2-1 based on yearly progression. Number 35 on this list is defensive end Trey Flowers. He is 26 years old. He had his 57 tackles, 7.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles this past year. His best season, though, was in 2016, where he had 45 tackles, 7.5 sacks. He has an 88 overall rating in Madden, in which he played for the Patriots and won another Super Bowl with the Patriots. The teams I project to go after him are the Giants, Raiders, and Patriots. I expect the Raiders to go after him and sign him, and he will become a great player for John Gruden and company. 34 on this list is defensive tackle Grady Jarrett. He had 52 tackles, 6 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. His best season was in 2018 this past year. He has an 88 overall rating in Madden. The teams I project to go after him are the Chiefs, Texans, and Dolphins. I expect the Chiefs to go after him and sign him, and he will fill a very similar role that Dontari Poe was doing with him when he originally got drafted by that team. Number 33 on this list is wide receiver Golden Tate III. He is 31 years old, so he is getting older, but he did have another solid year with 74 receptions, 795 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns with a 10.7 yards per reception average. His best year ever was 2014 with 99 receptions, 1,331 receiving yards with 4 touchdowns and a 13.4 yards per reception average. He has an 86 overall in Madden. The teams I'll expect to go after him are the Bills, Jaguars, and Eagles. I expect the Eagles to re-sign him considering they traded for him, and he will basically have a 3 to 4 year contract with them. Number 32 on this list is offensive tackle Ja'Wuan James. He is 27 years old. He started 15 out of 15 games this past year for the Dolphins. His best year was in 2014 and 2016 with 2 years, 16 out of 16 games started. He has a 79 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Browns, Jaguars, and Texans. I expect the Jaguars to sign him, and he will become the new tackle on the left-hand side, pushing Corey Robinson to go to the right-hand side. Number 31 on this list is Brian Poole, cornerback. He is 26 years old. He had a career year, very impressive, 74 tackles, 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, and 6 passes defensed. He is one of my favorite free agent steals available. He will definitely have a great year the next year, possibly more interceptions. I doubt more sacks. He has a 78 overall rating in Madden. And the teams I expect to go after him are the Colts, Panthers, and Bills. I expect him to sign with the Bills to become that number 2 guy, and he will do very well with the Bills. Number 30 on this list is offensive tackle Darrell Williams of the Carolina Panthers. He only started 1 game this year, so he was put on IR, unfortunately for him. But his best year was the year before, in 2017, where he started every game. He has an 82 overall rating in Madden. The teams I'll expect to go after him are the Browns, Jaguars, and Texans. I expect him to sign with the Browns, and he will be the guy that replaces the great Joe Thomas. Number 29 on this list is defensive end Frank Clark. He is 26 years old. He had 41 tackles, 13 sacks, 1 interception, 3 forced fumbles. Definitely his best year so far, and it'll be very hard to replicate that kind of year again. He has an 86 overall rating in Madden. The teams I expect to go after him are the Giants, Raiders, and Lions. I do expect the Lions to sign him, and he will replace Ezekiel Ansah. Number 28 on this list is quarterback Sam Bradford. He is 31 years old this year. He did have a very down year with the Cardinals, in which he had 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 400 passing yards, 7 rushing yards, a 62.5 completion average, and a 62.5 quarterback rating. The only inspiring thing was the completion percentage, and it's still not even that good. This is a guy that, if he can just stay healthy, he is one of the very best quarterbacks in this league. He just has to stay healthy. I can't tell you how many times he's had leg injuries and leg surgeries because of it. This is a guy that will probably have to go to a team, be the backup, and if the starter is struggling, you can bring him in. His best year was 2016 with the Vikings, in which he had 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,877 passing yards, 53 rushing yards with a 71 passing completion with a 99.3 quarterback rating. Anytime you have a quarterback that gets over 70 passes completed throughout the entire year, you can say that person is dominant, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league that year. He has a 74 overall rating in Madden. The teams I expect to go after him are the Broncos, Dolphins, and Jaguars. I expect him to go for Broncos to reunite with Case Keenum as a backup, and if Case Keenum struggles again, then, like I said, he will get the opportunity to start. Number 27 on this list is outside linebacker Clay Matthews. He is getting up there with the age of 33. He had a down year with 43 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and one forced fumble. His best year was in 2010 when he won the Super Bowl with the Packers. 60 tackles, 13.5 sacks, one interception, two forced fumbles. He has an 80 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would expect to go after his services are the Colts, 49ers, and Packers. I don't see him going anywhere else. Very similar to a Cole Beasley, Clay Matthews is a true Packer, and he will return to the team on a short-term deal, and then he will retire. Number 26 on this list is offensive tackle Trent Brown of the New England Patriots. He started every game this year, and his best seasons were in 2016 with the 49ers and 2018 with the Patriots, in which he started every game. He has an 81 overall rating in Madden. He did win a Super Bowl, so it does rise his resume above the other free agents, which is very nice for him. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Browns, Jaguars, and Texans. I expect the Texans to sign him and move him over to the left-hand side, and he will replace Dwayne Brown. Number 25 on this list is middle linebacker Jordan Hicks. He is 27 years old. This past season he had 91 tackles, 3 sacks. His best season was in 2016, though, with 85 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 5 interceptions. It's always impressive when you see a linebacker get more than 3 interceptions in the year. He has an 80 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would predict to go after him are the Cardinals, 49ers, and Raiders. I expect him to sign with the 49ers, and he will be their new middle linebacker. Number 24 on this list is safety HaHa Clinton-Dix. He is 26 years old. He had 93 tackles, 3 interceptions, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 passes defensed. Definitely a great year for him, but he's done even better, such as in 2016 when he had 80 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. He has an 83 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would predict to go after him are the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Redskins. I expect him to go after, to negotiate a long-term deal with the Redskins, considering that team traded for him, and the Redskins badly need some safeties. It will be on a long-term deal, and he will produce similar numbers. Number 23 on this list is cornerback Jason Verrett of the Chargers. He was on IR this year, did not play a single snap in a regular season. His best year so far was in 2015 when he had 47 tackles, 3 interceptions, 1 defensive touchdown. His overall rating in Madden is 84. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Colts, Panthers, and Seahawks. I expect the Colts to sign him and be their new starting cornerback. Now that Vontae Davis has just left and retired and done his whole shebang. Number 22 on this list is outside linebacker Anthony Barr. He is 27 years old. He had 55 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Not a horrible year, but he should have done better. His best season so far was 2014 with 70 tackles, 4 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. This isn't the guy that's going to get you a lot of tackles. He's more of a splash player with the sacks and interceptions and forced fumbles. But I do think he can start in this league. The teams I predict to go after him are the 49ers, Raiders, and Saints. I expect the Saints to sign him, and he will go alongside Demario Davis on the left-hand side, Will Davis on the right-hand side. And that would create a better linebacker group for the Saints, in which Drew Brees tries to find a way to get a Super Bowl win, despite all odds. Number 21 on this list is outside linebacker Dee Ford. He is 28 years old. He had a career year with 55 tackles, 13 sacks, and 7 forced fumbles. This was by far his best year, and I don't expect him to have a better year than this. The teams I'll expect to go after him are the Colts, 49ers, and Chiefs. I expect him to re-sign with the Chiefs on a long-term deal. A couple years ago, the Chiefs released Tamba Hali and others because they were just old. But at 28 years old, you can re-sign him. And the Chiefs need him. He's one of their better defensive players on that team. Number 20 in this list is safety LaMarcus Joyner. This is a guy that has played cornerback, safety, and slot corner. This is a great player. He's a hybrid player, one of the definitely better free agents in this class because he can play so many different positions. This past year, he had 78 tackles, 1 interception, 1 sack, and 3 passes defensed. His best year though was the year before in 2017, where he had 49 tackles, 3 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 1 defensive touchdown. He has an 87 overall rating in Madden. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Rams. I do expect the Rams to re-sign him. Based on his age of 28, it'll probably be between a 2 to 4 year deal. Number 19 on this list is tight end Tyler Eifert of the Bengals. He is 28 years old, greatly injury prone, and that's the biggest concern about him. Besides that, he's a great tight end. This past year, he had 15 receptions, 179 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown with 11.9 yards per reception average. Clearly, did not play the entire year, just a couple games, but for a couple games, that's pretty good numbers. His best year was in 2015, where he had 52 receptions, 615 receiving yards, and 13 touchdowns, and 11.8 yards per reception average. He has an 89 overall rating in Madden. He is definitely one of the best tight ends in the league. I would say top 10. The teams I would expect to go after him are the Broncos, Cowboys, and Lions. I do expect the Lions to sign him and become their new starting tight end if he can stay on the field. Number 18 of this list is safety Landon Collins. He is 25 years old, probably the youngest guy in this top 100 list. He had 96 tackles and 1 forced fumble. He did not have many sacks or interceptions. They were non-existent, which was a little bit surprising to me, and it probably won't happen again. I expect this guy next year to start getting those sacks and interceptions back up again. His best year was in 2016, in which he won Defensive Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year with 125 tackles, 5 interceptions, 4.5 sacks, and 1 defensive touchdown.